Hello, and welcome to an American Academy of Ophthalmology webinar on implementing MIPS in your practice. MIPS is the merit-based incentive payment system for practices with electronic health records and those integrated with the IRIS Registry. Our speakers today include Ms. Rebecca Hancock, who is Director of the IRIS Registry, Michael Repka, Medical Director for Health Policy, and Sue Vishrilli, Director of Coding and Reimbursement for the Academy. This material is very important. It's important because macro legislation changed the way physicians are paid from 2019 through at least 2026. It's important for all of us to recognize that MACRA is not affected by ACA, and although we've had a recent presidential election in which the repeal of ACA has been forecast, those measures will not affect this program to any large extent. We may see simplification or other fixes to the rigorous detail required of physicians by this program, but it's not expected to be replaced or eliminated. The information that we present today reflects the latest information as of December 2016. For ongoing information, don't hesitate to go to the Academy website at aao.org/MIPS. This recording is copyright 2016 by the American Academy of Ophthalmology, and therefore no part of the presentation may be reproduced or transmitted in any form or by any means without express written consent from the Academy. The timeline for the MIPS program is short. The Quality Payment Program, which is the overarching title in which the MIPS program exists, was only released on October 14, yet the rules begin on January 1st, 2017, so just 2.5 months. So we need to prepare now, and we'll need to prepare throughout much of 2017, and I suspect even into 2018, as we meet the requirements of this program. The key concept is that we are measured in a year. That measurement result is then applied to our fees 2 years later. So the performance in 2017 will affect the doctor's fees or allowed charges in 2019. It's also important to note that this applies to Medicare Part B. It is not a program that includes Part C or Medicare Advantage, nor does it include commercial or medical assistance payers. This program has winners and losers. Basically, there are payment adjustments for physicians that may be up or down, and the amount of those payments will increase as the program goes forward. The MACRA deal that Congress made was to give each of the physicians a little bit of increase in the fee-for-service side, and that you can see is the 0.5% increase forecast from 2016 through 2019. After that, those fees are flat in the fee-for-service fee schedule. Now, it's important to recognize that we might not actually get that 0.5%, that's subject to budget neutrality constraints. And for instance, in 2016, we actually went down a little, although in 2017, we'll go up a little bit, but less than the 0.5. So in 2019, the worst outcome could be -4. The best outcome could be 4%. Now, those may be applied, those high levels are applied only to the worst performers and the best performers, so that many physicians will receive intermediate reductions or increases. For instance, it's possible that a lot of ophthalmologists could see a +1 or +2%, or a -1 or -2. About 12% of physicians will get the -4% in 2019. This program, unlike programs that we had under SGR, is budget neutral. So there must be winners and there must be losers. And the amount of winning will depend on how much was lost. You'll see in this table that there's another group that gets a 5% update, or 5%, not update, but rather bonus each year. That group are those participating in the other pathway in the quality payment program known as alternative payment models. We don't expect that most ophthalmologists will be able to be in those panels, and thus it is not an important part of this discussion. The last row of the table says that there will be up to $500 million each year from 2019 through 2024. Those dollars are given to the very successful, the winners, if you will, in the MIPS program. They will be the best of the best performers, and they could get up to a threefold increase, even up to as much as 12% in the first year. How much of that money is applied to those winners depends upon their scores at the end of the day in the MIPS program. So, the merit-based incentive payment system. This is the main option for ophthalmology and the one that your team and you need to understand. Again, the impacts begin in January of 2019, and it's basically a multiplier, either a slight reduction or a slight increase in the allowed charges that you get. But you're measured starting in 2017. This program consolidates, or you might say replaces, the existing incentive programs, PQRS, meaningful use, and the value-based modifier. But when we say replace, it really just simply combines them, adjusts them, changes them, but they're still there. The incentive payment or the reduction that we get is based upon a composite score. The composite score is based upon our performance in 4 measurement categories, and this is frankly where it gets complicated. We'll get to those categories in a minute, but we need to make sure that everyone recognizes that in the final rule in October, CMS offered some flexibility. Initially, it looked like there were going to be a lot of doctors getting the big penalties, but CMS heard from physicians, heard from stakeholders after their proposed rule in the summer, and fixed a number of things. They created what's called Pick Your Pace Transition Plan. Basically, this plan makes it possible for you to have a 0% update in 2019 with no real work. It also makes it possible, if you're ready to go in the MIPS program, to do really well with the upside. However, if you don't participate, you're very likely to be in the -4% category. So, this increased flexibility will enable more providers to avoid penalties in 2019. So, you need to be there. There are 4 MIPS options for this during the transition year. The first is do nothing. You'll get a score of 0, and that will net the 4% penalty in 2019. For some people, that might be an okay option, but I think that as you'll see in this program, it's not a reasonable option. There are 2 easy ways to avoid that penalty. One of those is to submit some data under MIPS and completely avoid the penalties in 2019. That is a great thing to do and easy. Partially participate in MIPS. You remain eligible for small bonuses. They could be very small because many people may partially participate, and thus there isn't much of a negative pool to distribute. And if you're ready, as I mentioned earlier, fully participate in the MIPS program from day one, and you could get up there with the large 4% bonus or even some of the additional money for the very high performers. Great idea to do. In the Pick Your Pace program, there are impacts on your payments, and we'll summarize those again. MIPS, as I mentioned, is a budget-neutral program. The penalties are necessary to make the money for the bonuses. CMS and the Congress didn't want to allocate more or less money in general to this program, but they wanted to move money around between doctors as they succeeded or failed in the program. If few eligible clinicians receive a penalty, then the bonuses will be lower for budget neutrality. And thus, the maximum bonus earned could be less than 4%. And in the out years, the 5% year and 7% and 9% years, those would also be lower depending upon how many successful providers and unsuccessful providers there were. But remember that there's $500 million for exceptional performance. So eligible clinicians who fully participate and gain a score in 2017 of 70 or higher, they would get additional bonuses. It's somewhat amazing that a passing score of 70 would be exceptional in CMS speak. It could be as little as 0.5% on your charges, but again, that was what we accepted for the SGR deal, but could be up to 10%. And that obviously becomes very important if one can qualify. And that's an extra authorization. That's the part of MIPS that's not budget neutral and the part that would be really nice to succeed in. Importantly, some doctors are excluded from MIPS, and they need to know this so they don't waste time worrying about this program or worrying excessively about the program. You're automatically excluded from MIPS by CMS. You don't have to do anything if you see 100 or fewer Medicare patients in a year or have $30,000 or less in allowed charges. For those with optometry in their practices, they are counted as physicians under Medicare and do have to participate in the program with the same rule set. You're also excluded from MIPS if you're newly enrolled during that measurement year. It will be a problem for people that were enrolled in training who then enter the workforce because they will be counted in that first year in practice. You're also excluded if you participate in an advanced APM that meets the required participation thresholds, and that may be possible for a few ophthalmologists. CMS has estimated that 1 in 4 of us will be excluded from MIPS program in 2017, almost certainly because of the new physician or the relatively low volume rules that are in place. Now, back to the measurement. MIPS has 4 categories for our evaluation. They're quality of care, advancing care information, that's the new name for meaningful use, clinical practice improvement activities, and resource use. Each of those categories was included in the law by the Congress. The exact weighting of the scores for each of those categories has been determined by CMS and will change over time. But the initial values you see here are how they'll start for the measurement year 2017. So we'll be measured in each of the categories, we'll get a score, that score will be multiplied by the weight, and then the sum of those 4 weighted scores will then lead to our score from 0 to 100. Again, for 2017, a pass is 3, which is pretty low, it won't take much. Exceptional performance will be at 70. So the secretary has already determined those levels. First year payment adjustments are again based upon how we score in 2017. So a final MIPS score of at least 3 will avoid negative payment adjustments. But if you have 0, 1, or 2, you will have a negative adjustment. Now you can avoid that minus, that 0, and get to the 3 by submitting 1 quality measure or 1 improvement activity. The quality measure can be on a single patient. The 1 improvement activity would be for 1 period of 90 days. Those are really easy to do. Certainly, the Academy's website, this webinar, should give you the information to succeed in those. A final MIPS score greater than 3, yet lower than 70, may receive an incentive payment up to 4%. 70 or more will be eligible not just for the upside of 1 to 4%, but also 0.5 to 10% of additional funding. That's the budget. That's going to represent the amount that's not budget neutral. That's money that would be really nice if some ophthalmologists could achieve.
While there is significant flexibility offered under MIPS in the first year, we encourage all Academy members, especially those with an EHR that are participating in IRIS Registry and that have had success under PQRS, to fully participate in MIPS to not only maximize your score and potential for earning a bonus, but to also understand what will be required of you in future years of the program when the pick your pace flexibility is not an option. So for the first year, CMS is requiring that to maximize your quality score, physicians report for a period of at least 90 consecutive days, 6 quality measures. If you are using an EHR or a registry like IRIS, then you would need to report on 50% of your applicable patients across all payers. One of your measures must be an outcomes measure, or if you do not have an outcomes measure, then a high priority measure. And you have the opportunity to earn bonus points. If you are electronically reporting quality measures using an EHR or IRIS Registry EHR integration, then you would earn a bonus point for each measure that you report through those means. You also can earn bonus points for reporting on more than one outcomes or high priority measures. Each quality measure reported is worth up to 10 possible points, and points will be awarded based on your performance score. As I previously mentioned, as long as you successfully report some data for a measure, even if you do not report on 50% of your patients or report for 90 days, you will automatically earn 3 points for that measure. Large groups with 16 or more eligible clinicians will be measured on the 6 measures they report, in addition to a measure called all-cause readmissions, which CMS calculates using their administrative claims data. This is one of the measures which is being carried over from the value-based modifier program. No reporting is required for this measure. The important thing to note is that in order to be evaluated for this measure, physicians must have at least 200 patients which qualify for the measure. And because of our specialty, it is highly unlikely that ophthalmologists will be evaluated for this measure. Most ophthalmologists will be excluded from this measure. So the majority of ophthalmologists will be evaluated for the quality category based on the quality measures they report for MIPS and their performance rate on those measures. So you might be asking, how does CMS determine how many points I will be awarded for each measure? Well, they compare your performance rates to those from the 2015 reporting year. They essentially take the performance rates from all physicians that reported on a measure in 2015 and divide those rates into deciles. They then look at your 2017 performance and determine which decile your performance rate falls, and you get points according to that. As I mentioned previously, you also can earn bonus points. 2 bonus points per measure are awarded for reporting on additional outcomes measure, and you also can earn 1 bonus point for each measure that is electronically reported using an EHR or the IRIS Registry EHR integration option. So IRIS Registry has a broad range of quality measures that it is offering for reporting in the 2017 year. So for those of you with an EHR, IRIS Registry will offer 16 quality measures. 4 of those are outcome measures, and 5 of those are high priority measures. So here are the subspecialty breakdowns of those measures. If you have been participating in PQRS, you will find that the measures have not changed much since the 2016 PQRS reporting year. Most of the changes include the addition of new ICD-10 codes. However, IRIS Registry is adding one additional measure that can be reported by EHR in 2017. Under MIPS, physicians are not required in the first year to report on quality measures that cross specific quality domains. So you may remember that under PQRS, CMS required physicians to report on 9 measures across 3 domains. The domains are no longer required under MIPS. Instead, CMS is requiring physicians to report on at least one outcome measure, or if you do not have an outcome measure, then one high priority measure. So on the screen now are the 16 quality measures that IRIS Registry will offer for EHR reporters in 2017, and it's also designated if they are outcome or high priority measures. The second MIPS category is Advancing Care Information, which is the new name for meaningful use. The Advancing Care Information requirements are based off of the meaningful use Stage 2 and Stage 3 measures. But CMS has made some key changes. Eligible clinicians are required to report on 4 measures during the transition year, which is 2017. These only have to be reported on 1 patient, but the more you report, the higher your score will be. Additionally, practices will have the option to report advancing care information at the group level. The problematic patient portal measures are now optional. In addition, the computerized provider order entry measure was removed, which eliminates the need to have your office staff certified as scribes to enter orders into an EHR. Advancing care information can be reported through attestation on the CMS website, like is currently done for meaningful use. CMS is also allowing you to submit ACI data in 2017 using a registry such as IRIS Registry or directly through your EHR. CMS is mandating that all eligible clinicians use EHRs, which are certified to the 2015 edition beginning in 2018. However, that upgrade is optional in 2017. Most physicians will be on 2014 technology next year, as EHRs are still working to program the updates to their systems. This is important because practices that do move to the 2015 edition software have the option to report on different measures under ACI, but they can choose to report on the transition year measures, which is what I would recommend. Under Advancing Care Information, hardship exceptions will continue to exist just as they do under meaningful use. If you qualify and successfully apply for a hardship exception, your Advancing Care Information category would be reweighted to 0, and those points would be shifted to your quality category. Some of you may be participating in the Medicaid Meaningful Use program. That program is completely separate and unrelated to Advancing Care Information. You can continue to participate in Medicaid Meaningful Use if you are still eligible to earn bonus dollars from that program. But if you are no longer able to earn those bonuses or are no longer interested in participating in your Medicaid Meaningful Use program, you can discontinue your participation beginning in. The Advancing Care Information essentially has 3 components: a base score, a performance score, and a bonus score. Combined, these 3 components add up to 155 percentage points. However, the highest score you can earn under Advancing Care Information is 100. So if you get an Advancing Care Information score of 125 or 135, that would translate to a 100, and you would be awarded all 25 points towards your total MIPS score. Note that the base score, which is 50 percentage points, is required. The base score is earned by reporting each of the required measures on at least 1 patient. If you fail to report on any of the required measures, you will get a 0 for the entire Advancing Care Information category, regardless of whether or not you perform well on some of the optional measures. This slide shows you the Advancing Care Information transition year objectives and measures. The measures in bold are required for the base score. Those are the ones that you absolutely must report on at least one patient in order to get any points for advancing care information. The other measures are optional. You can focus on the ones that work well for your practice and that you can earn high points on to maximize your score. Note that participating in a specialized registry such as IRIS Registry will earn you 5 bonus points. The required base score measures for the transition year are listed on the screen. These must be reported at least once in order to get the 50% base score and any advancing care information credit at all. These are the security risk analysis, electronic prescribing, patient electronic access, and health information exchange measures. The measures listed on your screen now are the measures which can be reported to earn points toward your performance score in the transition year. Points are awarded based on your reporting rate for each measure. For example, the patient-specific education measure. If you meet the measure for 50 out of 100 patients that you see, the measures listed on your screen now are the measures which can be reported to earn points toward your performance score during the transition year. Points are awarded based on your reporting rate for each measure. For example, the patient-specific education measure. If you meet the measure for 50 out of 100 patients that you see during your reporting period, you will earn 5 percentage points toward your performance score. Finally, you can earn bonus points for participating in a specialized registry such as IRIS Registry. Bonus points can also be awarded for completing a clinical practice improvement activity using your EHR. Clinical practice improvement activities will be explained next, but I did provide an example on the screen. One clinical practice improvement activity is to provide 24/7 access to a clinician for urgent care or emergent care advice. You can earn the 10% bonus score for advancing care information if you meet that activity by using your EHR's secure messaging function to send or respond to messages outside of business hours. Now we will move on to a new category called Clinical Practice Improvement. Again, if you only want to avoid penalties next year, you can report on one quality measure, as we previously explained. But you also have the option to report on one clinical practice improvement activity to avoid penalties. If you want to earn a small bonus, you would need to report on more than one clinical practice improvement activity. If you are participating fully in MIPS and seeking to maximize your score, you will need to complete a sufficient number of clinical practice improvement activities for a 90-day period in order to reach 40 points. So how do you get to 40 points? Well, the activities, which have been defined by CMS, are weighted as high or medium. The high activities are worth 20 points, and the medium activities are worth 10 points. So you could report on 2 high-level activities, 4 medium activities, or a combination of both in order to reach 40 points. However, small practices are the exception. For them, the points are doubled. Practices with 15 or fewer eligible clinicians only need to report on 1 high-level activity or 2 medium-level activities in order to get credit for the clinical practice improvement category. In order to report on an improvement activity, you must attest that you have completed that activity. Attestations can be submitted directly to CMS on the CMS attestation website, which they will launch at a later date. This may be similar to the Meaningful Use attestation website, except that you would only be required to say yes or no that you have completed an activity. If you use IRIS Registry, you have the option to attest to IRIS which activities you completed, and then IRIS would submit that data to CMS on your behalf. Or you could do that to your EHR vendor if your EHR company offers improvement activity reporting next year. There are about 90 clinical practice improvement activities that CMS has defined. Some of them have no relation to eye care or the workflows of ophthalmologists, but many are relatively easy to achieve. A few examples are listed on the screen. Note that participating in a registry counts for a number of activities. So if you are participating in the IRIS registry and meeting the activities on the screen, you will automatically get credit for the Clinical Practice Improvement Activity category of MIPS. If you are in a small practice with 15 or fewer clinicians, you have an EHR, and are integrated with the IRIS registry, you automatically will maximize your score for the improvement activity category by participating in the registry. The final MIPS category is the cost category. This category is weighted as 0% in 2017. Therefore, it will have no impact on your 2017 MIPS score or your 2019 payment adjustment. For this category, no reporting is required by the physician. Instead, CMS will calculate this information using administrative claims data. Although this category is weighted as 0 in the first year, CMS still intends to measure physicians and provide feedback to them on their cost performance. CMS uses the measures listed at the bottom of the screen to measure providers on their cost performance. The first two measures, total per capita cost and Medicare spending per beneficiary, are carried over from the value-based modifier program. The third measure is an episode-based measure, which CMS will measure you on based on your episodes of care for lens and cataract surgeries. We've spent a lot of time discussing MIPS, but the second path under the Quality Payment Program is Advanced Alternative Payment Models. But please note that not all alternative payment models are advanced. Payment models must meet these 3 criteria listed on the screen in order to be considered an advanced alternative payment model. They must require participants to bear financial risk, it must base payments on quality measures, and require participants to use an EHR. Very few models meet this criteria. In fact, only 6 do in the first year of the program. In addition to that, there's other significant barriers to being a qualifying participant in an advanced alternative payment model. You are required to have at least 25% of your revenue or 20% of your patients under that model, and those thresholds are simply too high for most specialty physicians to qualify, and they go up each year. So for now, MIPS is the path for the majority of ophthalmologists. However, I know that there are many Academy members that participate in accountable care organizations. ACOs are not necessarily advanced APMs. In fact, all Track 1 Medicare Shared Savings Program ACOs are not advanced alternative payment models. Instead, these are considered MIPS ACOs. So if you are in a shared savings ACO, you are very likely still in MIPS in the first year. So MIPS ACOs have slightly different criteria than MIPS participants that are not in an ACO. For them, the weightings are different. You see on the screen that quality is worth 50%, advancing care information is worth 20%, improvement activities is 30%, and resource use continues to be 0 for them. On the screen now are the requirements that MIPS ACO participants would be required to meet in order to succeed under the program. ACOs must meet their own quality reporting standards, but these are based mostly on primary care measures. Under MIPS, ACO participants are allowed to report quality measures separately from the ACO, and you can do this using IRIS Registry. The reason for this is that if the ACO failed to meet its quality reporting obligations, physicians that report quality measures separately from the ACO would be protected from automatic penalties because of their own submissions. In summary, everyone should be able to avoid penalties under the 2017 reporting year. All you must do is report at least one quality measure and you can avoid penalties in 2019. Even if you are in an ACO, you should do this to protect yourself in case your ACO fails to meet its own reporting obligations. Use 2017 to get ready for 2018. There's a lot of flexibility provided in 2017, which is great, but that will not be there in 2018. So you will have to upgrade your EHRs in 2018 to the 2015 edition technology. You should work on this in 2017. Additionally, if you are in the IRIS registry, you should use the dashboard and work on your performance rates. If you see that you're performing lower on some quality measures, work on that to improve them or ensure that the mapping is adequate so that you are getting credit for your performance. You should integrate your EHR with IRIS registry if you have not already. Also, you may want to consider participating in MIPS as a group. There are some benefits to this. For example, under clinical practice improvement activities, if one physician in a group performs the activity, everyone in the group would get credit for that. So group reporting is something that you should consider for 2017. So again, group reporting has benefits under MIPS. However, if you report at the group level, you must do so for all categories. No registration is required for group reporting. Some of the benefits are outlined on the screen. For example, you have the ability to choose from a broader selection of quality measures, because if you have certain physicians in your practice that are subspecialized in different areas, you can report across all of those areas, so you have a broader selection of quality measures. It may be less time-consuming for practices. One physician of the group can successfully complete a clinical practice improvement activity, and the whole group will get credit for that. Additionally, one physician can enable the whole practice to achieve credit under advancing care information. Just by reporting the base score measures at least one time, the whole practice can get credit for that category. One of the greatest benefits that the Academy provides to its members is IRIS Registry. IRIS Registry will help you to meet the quality reporting requirements under MIPS. It provides at least one outcome or one high priority measure for almost all ophthalmologists that they could report. It supports credit for 3 clinical practice improvement activities, so just by participating in the registry, you get credit for those activities. It also will facilitate the reporting of advancing care information data by the web portal entry. You can also get bonus points by participating in IRIS Registry. For example, if you report on multiple outcomes measures or if you electronically report your quality measures through the IRIS Registry EHR integration.
So what has the Academy done in advocating for our doctors this year as the MACRA program has been rolled out, as rulemaking has gone on? We've had staff at CMS, we've had staff writing comment letters, the longest comment letters we've ever written. We've had lobbyists on the Hill working on this issue, trying to explain to members how onerous some of the burdens may be. There are some victories that have come this year during that. There is the increased flexibility that was added in the final rule with the Pick Your Pace program. There are expanded exemptions that were there mentioned earlier in this webinar. It's really important for the pediatric ophthalmologists, those that don't see seniors in Part B, doctors who only see a lot of Part C and little Part B. They could be excluded, and that would be, I think, good for them in the early years as this program works out a lot of kinks that are certainly to be there. The other victory was the neutralization of the resource use category. This has been a most problematic area for CMS. They have done quality resource utilization reports in many parts of the country. These QRUR reports are confusing, inaccurate, and not risk adjusted or subspecialty adjusted, and create more confusion. So elimination of the resource use category for 2017 is a great thing. The clinical practice improvement activities have been made easier. They've reduced the number of activities a provider must complete to get full credit. For groups under 15 providers, for instance, you need to do 2 activities for 90 days. You should be able to knock that out quickly and get those points in that category. The reporting period has been made much more flexible from a full year to 90 days, including that for the advancing care information category. That difficult, meaningful use area has long been a bane of contention for ophthalmologists, and this has made that, I think, much better. There will be fewer advancing care information requirements, so it should be easier to succeed in terms of that category as elements. There also is a lower quality reporting burden. It reduces the percent of applicable patients on whom physicians must report quality measures to 50% rather than from 80 or 90%, which were in the proposed rules. These are truly victories done at the grassroots and at the lobbying level in DC. We will spend much of 2017 working on further improvements in this program as we move into the 2018 reporting year and the 2019 reporting year and so on.